Hello, everyone. It's your boy, Stevie Collier. Welcome back to the Fantasy Fiends podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Andy Peloquin, and we are literally geared up for this week's podcast because we have Katherine Banks. And I'm telling you guys, go check out her Foikin covers, man, because her last name ain't Banks for nothing. She's making that bank with these new covers. So definitely check it out. That is Mercenary, and that series is Little Deathbringer Book 1. You'll have noticed that I have upgraded not only my microphone, but as well as my looks. And I think it's doing, I just look so much better in armor. So
and you're also talking like a gym bro, man. And I was wondering when that change started. You never said "ya boy" before, and so I'm a little worried about you.
I'm every intro is going to be different. It's just how I work. Katherine, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It is our honor, and I'm excited to get into Mercenary because I do judge a book by its cover like every other reader out there.
Yeah, that saying needs to be retired. I've had a few people tell me that now, and I'm like, no, you absolutely judge a book by its cover. You know, I've found that a lot of the best covers kind of hide the greatest books, you know, and then books that kind of have sort of an iffy cover.
Yeah.
In many ways, the book itself is also kind of iffy. Obviously, there are rules to every exception, but in the last couple of years, that's sort of what I've been finding.
I would never have picked up a George R.R. Martin book. Never. Neither would I have picked up Tolkien. These are just, names that got huge because of people who actually took a chance. I guess. I don't know. I don't study much of them because you know what I'm doing? I'm writing. So I don't have time to do this research. But ever since I was little, I always felt guilty because I'd comb through the libraries looking for awesome book covers. And people tried to get me to read Harry Potter. I'm like, no, it looks stupid. Look at the cover. Oh my God. So dumb. But looks like we got some rock music playing. Andy, I can't see you, man. Oh, yes, I can. Yes, I can. So, Katherine, what we like to do is when we start these podcasts, we usually talk about something cool that happened to us this past week. We should have warned you. Maybe Andy warned you before.
No warning, but that's okay.
No, good.
I figured that was up to Stevie to warn you or throw you in the deep end. Either way.
I usually throw people in the deep end, not because I want to, but because it slips my mind. But we'll go first, so you have time to think about it, unless you know one already.
Something that happened this week?
Yeah, it could be a new release. It could be a book you read. It could be you got married or divorced.
Let's see. I have an international Bookbub tomorrow.
What? Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. And it's for Mercenary, so it's very fitting.
Perfect timing.
Right?
Any tips for us people who want Bookbubs?
Just keep submitting. I've submitted it so many times now, and I got rejected a ton of times, so just keep submitting.
Yeah, I stopped submitting, so I should probably start again. But everybody says the same thing. Just keep submitting, and I just need to submit. I even my first time I submitted, I got really cocky, and in the comments I was like, "You're gonna want to use my book because I'm going places, baby." Because I didn't know if they'd actually listen or actually read it or not, and it just so happens, my novel, The Four Territories, actually did go places, but I blame the law of attraction. I just knew, and I'm not being cocky. I just, I spent a lot of time on the book, and I put a lot of money into it. And it looks like you did the same thing with Mercenary. So again, congratulations on the Bookbub. If you're listening, guys, Bookbubs are like, I don't. It's like a kiss from God, basically. Hello, is everyone still here?
Yep.
Okay, Katherine, is this your first Bookbub?
No, I had another one for my Pirate Princess book. Same thing, an international one. Getting a US one is so hard.
Oh, really? So I don't think I've even submitted for international.
So I usually submit for both at the same time, and then just say, they can schedule it whenever.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that with Mercenary, and then they said, okay, we'll give you an international, but they didn't give me a US.
Okay.
And that's happened twice to me now.
Yeah, and this was a relaunch, right?
Well, this one's been out for a while now. It came out and the relaunch happened in January.
Okay. Awesome. So for me, I have some pretty big news that Andy, are you with us?
Yep, I'm right here.
I have some pretty big news. If you are a fan of your boy Stevie Collier, I will be in Burbank the 4th through the 7th, and I will be with your boy Andy Peloquin signing autographs on Saturday the 6th. So stop on by. I'll probably be half naked.
If
Hopefully
we're
Andy will
sharing a
be
table,
too.
Stevie, you will be fully clothed. That is the
No,
condition.
I will not. No way. I gotta beat out all those other romance authors, so I gotta have some reason to stop by my table.
You're gonna see all of the cover models walking by, and you're gonna want to put your shirt on. It's just gonna be like, nope.
Oh my god.
That happened to me the first year that I went. I'm 6.5 feet tall, and there was another guy, Michael Foster. He's on like half of the romance, the indie romance novels covers, and this guy's like 6'2", but he's solid, just solid muscle. And I was like, yeah, nope, I'm done. I'm out.
So he's the gift to women, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Are like
he's an awesome guy, so it was okay.
Katherine, were you gonna say something?
Nope.
Okay. You don't wanna comment on the 6'2" of full muscle?
I'm actually just wondering what he looks like because I don't know his name, so now I'm curious.
All right, I will Google an image for you.
Oh man. Oh man. I've seen his nipples. That's what's sad.
That's usually what happens on the romance covers, right? It's the man chesticles.
Chesticles? What are chesticles?
You haven't heard that? Man, that's such a common term that we use.
What is it? Is it like the abs?
No, it's just, the guy's chest is always out on these romance covers.
The chesticles. So, I feel like my author picture shows my chesticles. Let's see. So that is my cool news. I will be there going through all the workshops and becoming a better author, stuff like that. Andy, I think you're working it, right?
Yeah, I'm staff, and I might end up. I don't think I'll attend any of the podcast. I mean the panels and stuff, but I will be giving one.
Oh, you will be?
Yeah, I'll be doing one on villains.
Oh man,
it's always about villains. Villains you love and heroes you hate.
Oh, I saw that one. Yeah, that one caught my attention. I didn't know it was you though.
Dude, every year, last year it was about the psychology of evil. That was the name of the panel. The one before that was about anti-heroes. Basically, if there's any like villain related panels at the convention, that's mine.
Oh, so cool. I don't know what mine would be. Bizarre, writing bizarrely, writing weird stuff, putting weird things into your fantasy, because that's what I feel like I'm good at. So it was Katherine's idea. I think it was Katherine's idea, or we spiraled from Katherine's idea, and we're gonna do a topic I know very much about, and that is not fitting in. That's right. Yeah, boy, he didn't fit in much in high school, even though. As I'm wearing armor with my hat backwards, yeah. D&D and World of Warcraft kind of kept me from fitting in with everybody. So today we are talking. Andy, what is the title today? Everyone is an outsider, right?
Yeah, and that was actually something that I thought of. I've been thinking about that for years. When I was growing up, I was sort of the outsider in my school, and my friends and stuff like that. But then as I grew older, as I was diagnosed with Asperger's and I came to terms with that, I started seeing that I wasn't the only one. In their own way, everybody is an outsider, and we're all just trying to find our tribe, our pack to fit into. And this is like basic evolutionary consciousness. In order to survive, you have to stay together as a pack so that you protect yourselves from predators, stuff like that. And so that's why we as humans tend to seek out like-minded individuals, people who share our core values and beliefs, who are like us, whether it's something as simple as you went to the same school together, or whether it's something like your fellow fantasy writers, or you share a religion, whatever it is, we form our own packs. But all of us are outsiders until we form a pack. We can, join other people's packs. We can form our own, but we're all just individuals trying to find a place where we belong. And that realization really helped me to sort of improve my social activities, the way I approach situations, because everybody's trying to find a way to fit in amongst other people who they may not fit in with. So it's not just me feeling awkward, it's everybody feeling awkward together and trying to find people who make them feel a little bit less awkward.
Well said. Wow. You've given this some thought.
I give everything thought, Stevie. That's sort of my job.
I heard half of it because now I'm staring at the chesticles of that guy. He looks like he's half painted, and I love his hairy nipples. Usually they're shaved, I thought.
Yeah, usually they're like waxed, but then you get the hairy ones too.
I swear I have not analyzed romance novel models. This is the first. Anyways, so what you're saying, Andy, is no matter what society, no matter what culture, everyone has cliques are made.
Yeah, any way you cut it, we form these packs, whether it's your family, right? Because family is often a state of mind versus blood. Like we were talking about that with Nicholas Eames last week, the found family. Where you people are bound together by circumstance or by trauma or by shared ideology, whatever it is, they form their own family. And so you can choose that. You can make these groups with your family, the people that you're born and raised with, because you have this thing in common. Or you find other people who are your family, who share something similar, or who you have an emotional connection to. You're packed.
I feel like this was a something that we maybe biologically started doing because, when you were back in your tribes, in order to survive, you had to come together. And I think I've actually read that before. I think I learned that in school at some point, and luckily I was paying attention that day. But yeah.
It was a song by the Beatles, Stevie.
Qu'est-ce que c'est? I actually have only know like 2 Beatles songs.
It's Come Together, Stevie. It's like
Come together.
There you go.
Right now. Over me.
I think a lot of sort of evolutionary psychologists compare it to wolf packs. Wolf packs have a fairly similar structure in many ways to human groups. There's the alpha. No matter where you are, someone is always the alpha. It's not necessarily the biggest one or the strongest one. It's usually the one with the most agency, the one who has, who drives the actions of the pack, or who has the strongest willpower. Often physical strength and size do play a role in it, but there is always going to be an alpha. Then there will be the betas, and then the young wolves, and then whatever it is. But then the reason that human tribes and packs evolved is because for the same reason that wolves, if they're lone wolves or they're stragglers, they can't hunt, the buffalo, for example. It takes a whole pack of wolves to bring down a buffalo. And if it's just one lone wolf, he's never going to eat, or he's never going to eat enough. So then he'll ultimately starve and die. So being part of a pack is the way literally to survive. Way back when, man first started evolving or changing or forming societies. And in many ways, that mindset has remained consistent to this day because we thrive as a society. Society is what keeps us together, and we have to keep society together. So it's this sort of snowballing thing, but without it, we wouldn't survive.
That is a perfect tie-in for Katherine, who writes about shapeshifters, and you'll see here that I drew a very good one of a person with 2 swords into a very obese cat.
What you need to do, Stevie, is you need to make an arrow the reverse way as well, because it's not just one way shapeshifting. So
they're not stuck in cat form. I could only do it once, guys. But the inspiration for the fat cat was my girlfriend's cat, which is obese and lovely. And she's wonderful. She's my little bowling ball.
The cat, right? Not your girlfriend.
Yeah. Oh,
Just
you're gonna
wanted,
get
just
me in
wanted,
trouble.
just wanted that to be very clear in case she did listen to that.
Yes, she is not my bowling ball. Uh, so Catherine, so do these shapeshifters, do they have a clique of their own, or are they usually by themselves? Are they lone wolves?
They're usually in a pack. I usually see most of mine. It's usually like 2 or 3 members of the pack. There may be a huge pack overall, but the cores, it's usually like 3 or 4 people in one group.
Did you research what shifters are they? What animal?
So I first started out writing werewolves because it was back when Anne Rice was big and I hated vampires and there was not enough werewolf books, and then it
Uh-huh.
exploded after that, right? Um, so now I have, depending on the book, I have dragon shifters, I have tiger shifters, I have lion shifters, I have pretty much everything.
Have
And
you have you done research sort of into the personalities or the behavior of these animals in order to write these different characters?
Yeah, I did a lot of research into wolves, and I actually did a lot of reading of werewolf novels in general. I mean, even the horror ones, to just see what everyone else thought about it. And I have a huge book that's the mythology of werewolves.
Oh wow.
And so I did a lot of research on the wolves, not as much on the others. I mean, I do the basic research on them, um, but wolves were always my main focus. So,
It's interesting because I think tigers tend to be loners,
right.
no?
Yes.
And dragons, how do dragons behave? Is there a comparable animal in real life?
I don't know. I just tend to make them act more like their human counterpart.
Okay. I guess the question is which came first, the human or the dragon?
It depends on the book.
Ah, interesting.
I guess you can go any way you want with dragons. They can be loners, they can be in packs. Would you call it a pack or a
It's
pod?
a flight.
Ooh, a flight. I love how you know that because I you 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 actually have. Do you have a mythology book or a huge book on dragons? They actually
No,
make those.
but I did Google extensively trying to figure out what the term would be for a group of dragons. And there's multiple, but flight was the my favorite of them.
Flight is
Uh,
pretty cool. I wish they would have done
yeah.
something like a greed of dragons or something like that. That sort of caters to the dragon's personality, or that the classic Smaug type personality of dragons, which is to hoard money. Sort of like how they have a parliament of owls. Like these words tend to be very personality based,
Mhm.
as opposed to behavior, or not all the time. You've got the murder of crows, which sort of denotes the darkness of their nature, stuff like I really like that. Man, Stevie, you've got that romance novel hero hair going on.
Wait, what? Me?
Yeah, look at that. Look at how long and flowing it is. It's like you
Oh.
should be bare chested on one of those covers.
Yeah, I just need to grow 4 more inches, apparently. I'm definitely not 6'3".
Oh, you were talking
Uh,
about your height. I wasn't gonna say anything. I was thought you were referring to the hair.
no, no, the hair's got some time to go. As you can see, it curls on the side, and this like grows really slowly, but everything else grows pretty quickly. But one day it'll be romance novel worthy, ladies. I'm like having fun with this mic, so I feel like the closer I get, I can get my voice really deep. Um, all right, I'm gonna stop. Catherine, I had a question about your transformations in these shifters. So I'm guessing the werewolves, it has something to do with the moon or a certain planet. What about the other shifters? Is there a way? Can they just boom, I'm a cat, or boom, I'm a tiger, boom, I'm a dragon, or is there a process?
Again, it depends on which book, because I have so many different books. In my initial series, it was moon based. So when the moon was full during that week, that's when they would shift. They could shift any other time, but during that time, they had to shift. And it was kind of like the horror version, the bone popping and all that.
Oh,
But then I have other books where it's just an instant shift. So they just, it's, basically a magical shift. They go just from what they were to the other, to the animal. And it's not moon based or anything like that.
And for the classic horror werewolf, what triggers, like it's the moon, but what in the werewolf's body sets off the catalyst of cellular changes? Like, is it something in the bone marrow or something in the blood? Like, what's the...
I think usually it's just the way that the lycanthropy virus reacts to the moonlight. So when the
Okay.
moonlight hits their skin, um, that's when they change. Because
And
you'll
so
see,
it's almost like the rash that's triggered by direct sunlight, but with moonlight and then this lycanthropy virus inside them, it triggers this transformation.
right.
Very interesting.
I don't think I have any shifters in any of my books. I'm trying to think. My problem with the shifting thing is, how do you keep them from being overpowered? If they can just shift instantly into this animal, have you ever run into that problem where it's just like, well, damn, he can just destroy this person now because he
Well,
is a...
especially because I have the warrior form in mind, so where they can shift into the half man, half wolf, right?
Uh-huh.
That it's a lot of times where you have to worry about them being OP, and it's
Okay.
difficult to work with. It's usually just kind of like uh, Dragon Ball, right? The Dragon Ball anime,
Oh,
where there's
yeah.
always a stronger villain. There's always someone
Always.
stronger than them.
Yes. That is, and I think people get, yeah, Dragon Ball is just, seriously, there's no other, I can't think of, yeah, it's just so we had Cell, then Majin Buu, and then we had Bills. Bills is the next one, I believe. Now they have Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super, and they have God mode for Goku because he has to keep up with all these insane villains that they're creating. I don't even know how the Earth has survived all this crazy stuff. I don't have to worry about overpowering my characters because I always write the underdog, and that's why I thought this would be a really good podcast, because I write a lot about people who don't fit in. And I've just always enjoyed writing about that. My first character, he really didn't. I think in the first chapter, he gets mutilated by his fellow orphans. So definitely did not fit in there, and that was just because of his hair color and his blood being half of another territory. So I totally understand. I think because I wasn't saying I wasn't popular in high school. I wasn't popular in high school, but I also wasn't like not known. People liked me. They enjoyed my time, but I didn't fit in with anybody. I had my one friend and we did our thing. We would study. We'd go hang out just with us two. And that was it. So I played baseball, and then they hated me because I quit baseball to go into theater. And I remember one guy, his name was Garrett. He walked up to me and he was shaking his head. He was very condescending. And he just asked me, why? So I think I was like, since I quit the team, like they had to find somebody else because we were such a small high school that the baseball team would have had to like stop being a baseball team. But I really wanted to be in the Sound of Music. So yeah, so I know a little bit about not fitting in. And I think the cool thing about that is I never tried to either. And I still don't try to. And the characters I write don't try to either. And I always come back to this is I think sometimes we put a little bit of ourselves into the books we write. At least I do. So I can speak for myself in that factor. Andy, I totally could see where you didn't fit in Japan, being the 6-foot Godzilla that you are.
Yeah,
So
totally. I the truth is that I've never lived in a country where I look or talk or sound or think like people. Right? I've always been an outsider in the country where I live. I've lived around people who've sort of, like me, fellow gaijin or fellow gringos or wherever. But since arriving in Canada in May, this is the first time where I'm actually around people who are like me, and it's refreshing because I don't have to worry about standing out. I'm tall enough, I'm intellectual enough, for my interests are diverse enough that I do stand out. But if I don't want to stand out, if I just want to be like everyone else in the crowd, I am.
So they don't see you already as, because you don't see out and about. Do they see you as Canadian? But you are Canadian.
I am Canadian, and
Yeah.
there's nothing about me that suggests otherwise. On first blush, it's when you talk to me, you find my life story. That's when you find out that I'm not your quintessential Canadian. But you have to get past that. So if it's just this initial exchange, we start off on even footing. Whereas when I was living in Mexico or in Japan, right away people look at you. I'm walking down the street, people are staring at me. So it's very visible that I stand out, that I'm an outsider in the country where I spent literally my entire life.
When I was in France, I easily stood out. And I don't know how I stood out, just people knew. And I think it was the things that I wore. I remember running home shirtless one time, and I thought an angry mob was going to start following me home. Because you don't do that in France, apparently, especially not in northern France. So I'll never do that again. Katherine, has there been a time that you haven't fit in? And is that a reason why you write these characters that you do?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, I had a few friends, but I have such a vast uh, difference in my likes that
Mm-hmm.
it would be more that I had a few friends in this clique, a few friends in this clique, which I think kind of also goes over into my adulthood where I don't have just a single pack. I have more of like I have my online writer pack and then I have my, D&D pack that comes over. So I have multiple packs in essence.
That okay, yeah, that definitely makes sense. So, uh, I'm seeing a trend here. Are all fantasy authors outcasts?
It seems that way.
Yeah, it seems like, if you write fantasy, then you obviously at one point wanted to be a character that you wrote about. I think that's a big reason why people read fantasy, is because they want to become these characters, or they see a little bit of themselves in these characters. Um, and it's an escape. It's something they want to go on this adventure. And for a time when they're reading it and they're in the flow state, they are in that adventure. Because I get into that whenever, like today, I wrote about a really dark scene. I think I have to take it out because it might be too dark. But I was there, and I was sad when I left the computer to go eat lunch. I was like, man, that was terrible. And it's for my character now. He found a clique, and then he doesn't know if he wants to be in this clique. But then the clique comes together, and then again, he's like, well, maybe I should just go off my own. So this podcast is perfect for him. His name's Finn Featherstone, and again, he's like the nerd in high school with no friends, and turns out he gets the best sword, kind of like King Arthur. Um, but
I think writers, not just fantasy writers, but writers in general, they tend to be very much outsiders in many ways. Like I don't know if it's ever happened to you guys, but you're in the middle of talking to people and all of a sudden an idea hits you and you have to go and write it down, right? You can't do that in the middle of other people. And so you have to literally get outside the social situation, write down the idea, and then come back in and try to reassimilate. You've broken away from the pack to do that thing, and then you try to reassimilate. Or when you're writing, today I spent 6 hours, 7 hours alone in my office writing. I took breaks throughout the day to see my kids, talk to my wife, to eat, but you can't write as a group activity. You can't
mhm,
write together.
yeah,
Whereas, let's say I have some friends in the comic book industry, and they'll just hang out all night long, drinking, talking, watching TV, all the while they're drawing because it's a much more social activity, or it requires far less of that extreme concentration. And that's something that people who aren't authors, be it fantasy author, be it mystery, thriller, romance, whatever it is, it's something that they have a really hard time understanding, is just the amount of mental concentration and
mhm,
focus that it takes. And that, in many ways, is one reason that so many fantasy authors in general, or just authors in general, we form these friendships with other authors, is because they're the only ones who understand what it really means to be an author.
You just blew my freaking mind. Seriously, like you put all my thoughts into words right there. I'm like a cat when it comes to writing. I have to like, or a dog really. So like I have to do like my little turns in the bed, and then when I get in the bed, I have to make sure it's like perfect, and then I'll get up and do my circles again. And then people, they just don't understand the process of writing. You need to be alone. Like I can't have anybody in the room talking. No way. I have to have the right music on, and it's my habit. I have to be in the right place to write. Um,
But also,
Have you guys ever heard of
Go ahead, Katherine.
My Write Club?
no, I haven't heard of that.
So it's an online where you can basically sprint with your friends. And so you write your story and it keeps track of, and it shows count too. So you're sprinting together trying to write basically. And I found it's actually pretty helpful when I words that I need to get out in that session.
That is awesome. I've done it once, and I turned off my webcam, or not turned off. I moved like the browser, and then I was typing, and then I went back to the browser, and I saw the guy staring at me. I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm done." I'm like, "So you're watching me?" But that's the first time. But I would love. Is that a website or a Facebook group?
It's a website.
That's awesome. You know what? How many words do you write a day?
I work full time, so I work
Okay.
study until 4. I don't get home till 5. But I write at lunch and I write on my breaks and I write when I get home. So I can write anywhere between, I think I average between 2 and 6,000 words, depending on the day.
And you work full time and you get that amount in.
Yes. Yes.
That's intense. I've heard people with less baggage than you. I'm not saying your work is baggage, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Who do less than you, and then they complain when they only get 500 words in. And this is not mentioning children. Like that, these people didn't have children. So yeah, I found since being friends with Andy, I've really wanted to up my craft. So I've started slowing down. And I really form my sentences a little bit more. So maybe when I'm more of an aged author, I'll be able to write like you guys and push that. But like you, I also have another job that I do, and it's something I'm very passionate about as well. So I don't want to give it up. And yeah, so now I'm seeing this trend where maybe all fantasy authors are outcasts in their own way. We're just the people who put the thoughts and the ideas to paper.
Yeah, and I think it's one reason that so many fantasy novels revolve around these proto packs. Take any novel, any fantasy novel, and you'll find people coming together. Right? Lord of the Rings, classic. You've got 4 little hobbits that are originally friends. Then you've got the wizard, who's sort of the fatherly figure, and then you've got the older brothers, and then the crazy uncle, and you've got all these things, and they form together this pack, this family, and they're what ultimately keeps everyone alive. Like Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli go to try to track down Merry and Pippin that have been captured by the orcs. Spoiler alert for book 1, right? And so all of these things, all of these stories show the value of a family unit or of a pack. And so I think that's one reason that so many people resonate with fantasy stories, but I would say stories in general, is because they show what happens when people come together. Like if you name any book, even if it starts out with a loner, ultimately they're going to find friends, they're going to find family, they're going to find people, because no man is an island or no woman is an island. You can never survive on your own, especially when it comes to facing, epic world-ending stakes. Doesn't happen.
I think that's why Comic-Cons are so popular for the nerdier people like myself, right? Because if you're in a group where there's people who don't enjoy the same interests as you, you may not be talking as much. I tend to hide in the corner. But when I go to a Comic-Con or some type of event where they like the same things I like, I am much more likely to engage in conversations with them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's something I've noticed is that Comic-Con is really the only place where I've ever found people who share so many of the same interests as me. We may not have all the same interests. You know, I'm a Marvel guy, and I find plenty of very wrong DC people. And for any DC fans that are listening, it's not shots fired. It's just a joke. But you know, you can talk about the thing that you love, the thing that makes you passionate or interests you, and then you go find someone else who loves the same TV show that you do, or you find someone who loves the same fantasy book series or sci-fi, something, or you know, whatever it is, and you've got all of these people in this big melting pot of shared interests, and it's so much easier to make friends because everyone is sort of displaying their outsiderness on their sleeves. Like the outsiderness is almost their badge of pride. You are at Comic-Con because you are a geek of some form. And in society to date, or up until recently, being a geek was sort of being an outsider. So now it's people very open about their geekness. And that's what has made such tight-knit communities of people at these different conventions around the world.
You know, as I've gotten older, I've become less of an outcast. I want to say I was never really an outcast. I got along with most everybody. The people who I didn't get along with were people who were jealous of me. And I'm not saying I'm like this great guy, but I try hard. I try hard in everything I do in life. And these are the people, the losers, who did nothing. And they saw me and they're like, this guy's a dick because he's better than me in their mind. And I'm not saying I was better than them, but you know, those are the people I didn't get along with. But there's never been a person without that attitude that I have not gotten along with. You know, if they're not condescending, if they're not a bully, I get along with them. I find interest. As an ENFP, we find interest in everything somebody has to say because we can find it as inspiration for something we want to do. So let's say you're a hunter. I'll ask you questions about your guns because maybe one day I want to write about a gun. So I've gotten along with most people. But the thing is, I'm an eagle and eagles soar alone. And I really love that quote. And I don't have a lot of friends. The friends I do make are highly intelligent and I can have very deep conversations with them and speak anything I want to them. And I can't do that with most people. So I have very few friends. And I guess that would make me an outcast because I don't pull people into my pack a whole lot. Does that make sense?
I would say that it's slightly different because there are lone wolf types. Like you said, you know, eagles fly alone, but then ultimately we do all gravitate towards other people versus people who sort of just naturally feel outside of all the people in their lives, you know, whether it's their family, their friends, and those are the ones who have a harder time finding people to assimilate with. I know for years, even now, I still feel like all of the people in my circles, I don't have a lot in common with them, right? I don't have as much in common with them as I would like because my interests are vastly different from theirs. So I definitely feel like an outsider, even with, you know, my brothers, my sisters, my in-laws. Yeah. But then you find friends and they sort of fill that void, so to speak. You know, you have those things in common, and then you feel less deficient ultimately when you find sort of like how Katherine has multiple packs. You love D&D, so your D&D friends fill that hole. They don't do anything for your fantasy writing, but you've got other packs to fill that. And so, you know, ultimately some people, they find one pack and stick with them for life. Others, they find multiple packs and each one of them fills sort of a quotient of your emotional needs.
That raises a question from me to Katherine. Katherine, so I don't know if you can see my holes in my finger. What am I saying? Do you ever allow your packs to combine at just a little bit, or is that awkward?
We do sometimes, and I mean, usually my pack, they can get along, you know, with others pretty well. I tend not to have jerks in my pack if possible. So they can get along pretty well, but it is, I mean, you can tell most of them aren't as outgoing, you know, they don't talk as much when they're together versus when it's separate.
Do you have to change yourself for these different packs?
I don't think I have to, but I think I do.
Yeah, I think that might just be, your subconscious, and there's nothing you can really do about it. I wouldn't
Right.
think, I think we gravitate to be the person we want, people want us to be without us realizing it. And I think it's still you. It's still you, just a different side of you that you show a little bit. That's just my idea. I do the same thing, kind of like when I'm with adults, I'm less goofy. When I'm with Andy, I'm very goofy. Stuff like that. But I've when I'm by myself, I'm actually very quiet. I work a lot, and the side that the podcast sees is barely me really in life because I'm a writer. I'm in my room. I'm behind my desk and I'm writing. But yeah, Andy, do you see yourself changing around different people?
Oh, totally, totally. The things that I talk about or the way that I, the way that I interact with them, not so much to the point where I change who I am, but it's sort of like adapt or die. If I love fantasy, but the people that I'm hanging out with don't, if I talked about fantasy, they'd hate me, they'd get bored, and I'd be out of that social circle. So if I want to assimilate, I kind of gotta adapt, right? But then, so that's kind of why I believe that only other authors understand that some of your happiest, emotionally satisfying moments will be alone.
Yeah.
Because it's when you get that super tender scene, or you work out that emotional issue that's been plaguing you for years, or you sort of have an emotional or mental breakthrough because of some scene that you're writing. It will never involve people, and you're okay with that because that's exactly what you love about writing. And so you get that. Katherine, I'm sure you get that. My wife may not understand it. My brother may not understand it, but you guys do. So you guys ultimately become my pack. And that's why I think so many writers gravitate towards others. It's because it's this unique art that no other art form in the world can really come close to emulating.
A career based on storytelling is extremely unique. And I can't think of many careers that would create this sort of dynamic where we are forming these little packs. And then also, we could not form these packs as well without the internet. So I wonder what happened back in the, the 60s or 70s with these. I think that's when fantasy really exploded with the Tolkien era. What did they do? Were they seriously the outcasts, of society?
No, they were right there. They had their little clique. I don't know if it was in Oxford or Cambridge, it was in the UK somewhere. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and other authors. But then you can go back further. I'd say probably the best example would be, Venice, during the height of artistic period, where just artists and authors and playwrights and poets and sculptors, just this city was just art central because the leadership of the time, the government made it a place where they can flourish. But ultimately, like attracts like when it comes to art. So that's why you have so many hubs, as it were, of artists, whether it's actors or authors or whatever it is, that where these people came together. Now with the internet, it's possible to do it much more widespread. But before the advent of the internet or telephone or communication, these people congregated together.
And it just makes me wonder how they did that. And I just, I always go back to the law of attraction. You just like attracts like, and I did not know Tolkien and C.S. Lewis got together. Didn't C.S. Lewis, right?
Yeah.
He wrote religious novels or books with religion in it in a comedic way.
Not so comedic.
Not comedic. Okay.
More what's the word, like the meaning through a story, allegorical. That's the one.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't picked up any of his books. Katherine, is there anything else you want to add before we get to the reading? I'm really excited about that.
No, not that I can think of.
Oh, there is one announcement I want to say before we get on with the reading, and that is thank you so much for 195 subscribers. We're so close to 200. I would like to start doing like some kind of goal that gets more outrageous the more subscribers we get. So for 200, I couldn't think of one, and then I woke up this morning. I was like, face painting. So, Andy, what do you think about it hitting 200 subscribers? We paint our faces for that podcast.
We do an episode with our face painted.
Yeah.
Tell you what, you do 200 with your face painted. At 250, I'll do one with half my beard shaved.
You're done. So done. It's handshake over at Google Hangouts. Yeah, okay. So you heard him. If we get 200 subscribers, I will paint my face. Maybe like a...
You have to do a whole episode with your face.
That's going to be so hard for me.
Yeah.
That's just not me, guys. I don't want to do that. I'm so shy. That's how I talked in high school. Gah. I'm too good for you. All right. Oh, man. Never mind. Okay, so we're going to be reading an excerpt from Mercenary, the series Little Deathbringer, Book 1 by Katherine Banks. And this is the one with a really cool cover. And then the next one is Protector. Am I right, Katherine?
That's right.
Awesome. And do you kind of want to give us like a background to this one?
So Mercenary is about Marin, who lives with the elves. She actually was adopted by the king and queen of the elves. They found her on the roadside. Her family had been killed by ogres. And so they adopted her, took her in. And so she's the outsider there because she's human living with all of these elves. And she's weaker and, not as fast as them. So she's trying to become a mercenary, which no girl has ever been a mercenary before. No woman has been a mercenary. So she's going to school, this academy, this training ground, to become a mercenary.
I love it. And you know what? There's an author you probably know. I got invited today to be part of her Facebook group, and that's Women of Fantasy. Did you join that?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
That would be perfect for you. In fact, you would have been really good for that episode because we talked about strong female characters in fantasy, which inspired me to write one. And it's been hilarious and amazing. I'll have to one day. I want to talk about her in the podcast. Her name's Ariel, and she doesn't even have a last name yet. But anyway, Andy, so what you're gonna do, Katherine, is you can tell Andy and I what characters you want us to play, or how many characters are, and then we can figure it out, and who you want to narrate if you'd like to narrate.
Okay. I'm fine with one of you narrating.
Okay.
There's two main characters, which is Fabian, who is the elf prince, and then of course Marin.
I don't mind narrating.
And then there's also a group of bandits that end up coming. So there's multiple bandits.
Andy, do you want to do Fabian as well, or would you like me to do Fabian?
Sure, I'll do Fabian and the bandits.
Okay, and do you want to do Marin?
Yeah, I'll do Marin.
I feel like that's a badass band name, Fabian and the Bandits. Boom.
Yeah, it sounds like a rock band, right?
So let me give you a little back where this scene is starting from. It's starting just after they were on basically vacation holiday so now they are riding back to academy to continue their schooling.
Did you break up, or is that?
Yes, they're riding back right now to the academy.
Okay, cool. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready. Oh, what kind of accents do I get to do for Fabian?
Accent you want.
Right. So he's an elf, so he's kind of like a noble kind of guy?
he's an elf prince. So
all right. Oh yes.
Good to go. Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the excerpt from Mercenary by Katherine Banks. Fire's ears shot forward just as Fabian drew his sword from its sheath and slowed ice.
Riders, 6 of them, moving fast this way.
Another elf perk I envied. Extremely good hearing. I kept my sword sheathed to appear as a delicate female human being escorted by an elf. It was surprising how well that tactic worked on dumb men. The riders appeared on the horizon line, still barely visible to me, but in perfect sight for Fabian.
Human bandits, be ready.
I nodded at him, and then draped my right leg over my horns so that I was essentially riding side saddle instead of regular. Even though I was wearing pants, that wouldn't deter most men since putting women in pants was a common tactic to make them appear less helpless, which helped us make me look more helpless in the current. The bandits spotted us finally and charged the horses forward to encircle us. They were all very hairy with facial hair so thick that I couldn't see any of their mouths. They all wore dirty leather outfits that needed a soaking and then a washing. I was sure they wouldn't smell very good either, but I didn't try to find out, beginning to breathe through my nose as they moved closer. The leader moved his horse closer to me, and I pulled on Fire's reins to move her closer to Ice and Fabian, tucking my head down and widening my eyes as though I were scared of him. Luckily, my cloak hid my sword, so he couldn't see it on my belt to realize I wasn't scared of him or his hairiness.
Don't be frightened, pretty lady. We won't hurt you,
He said as he circled us. I thought he might be smiling, but it was hard to tell if his mustache had moved upwards or not.
Leave us be,
Fabian said,
or I shall be forced to defend myself and the lady. What elf ain't enough to take on 6 men?
The leader said.
Especially not a young elf such as you.
That was where they were wrong. I knew Fabian's true strength, and it frightened me sometimes. Never get on an elf's bad side, or you won't live to regret it.
Last warning,
Fabian said, and then smiled.
We're gonna wipe that smile right off your face.
Another of the bandits said angrily. Was that a frown, or was his beard just particularly droopy? The leader reached out towards me to grab me from my saddle, and as soon as his arm was within reach, I grabbed it and jerked him towards me, pulling him from his saddle. I shrieked as though shocked and scared at what happened, and then the fight began. Fabian killed 2 men instantly with his throwing knives in their throats before they could even draw their swords, and then he moved towards the other 3. The leader pulled his sword just as I pulled mine, and then he came at me. He must have realized I wasn't completely defenseless, or he wouldn't be attacking me. I parried his blow and then stabbed him with one of my knives.
Not all of us are damsels in distress.
I whispered before yanking my knife out. He reached his sword to strike me, and I plunged mine into his belly. He gargled in pain and then fell to the ground dead. I was right. They did stink. I turned just in time to duck a punch by one of the other bandits and caught a whiff of his stench, which made me gag a moment before swinging at his face with my fist. Fabian finished him off with the bandit he was fighting and turned to me.
Sorry. Need help?
He asked. I punched the bandit in the face and then blocked his return punch.
No, I'm fine.
I said as I hit him in the throat with my hand. He stumbled backwards, gasping for air, and then pulled a knife from his belt. I moved to pull mine, but Fabian had already thrown one of his into the man's throat, ending his life. I turned and frowned at him.
I was fine.
He ignored me, hopping off of Ice's back to retrieve his knives.
You were moving too slow. He could have stabbed you before you got your knife out.
If you don't let me protect myself, I won't learn.
I told him as I wiped my knife and sword on the bottom of my cloak to clean the blood off.
You can learn at school with dull blades that won't kill you.
He retorted. He was upset, but I had no idea why. I hadn't done anything wrong. Well, at least not that I can think of.
Quickly, check them over,
He ordered. I searched each of the men, coming up with a measly 40 coins. I was searching them later, sure that I would find nothing, when I came across a small painted picture in his pocket. I stared at the picture in shock and couldn't move. It was me. Why would he have a picture of me?
You find anything?
Fabian asked. I turned the picture over and found 2 lines of writing. Kidnap alive. Bring to me. No signature. No name. Fabian took the picture from my hand, scaring me and making me jerk a knife from my belt in reaction. He looked at me in shock a moment until he read the writing and turned the picture over.
We're going back to see father,
He said angrily.
No.
I yelled.
We're already late for school as it is. We can't be any later.
Someone sent these men after you, Marin. Don't you understand that?
He asked as he faced me.
Yes, but they failed and we only a day away from school. Whoever hired them won't have time to learn of their failure and hire new men before we arrive. And you know as well as I do that the academy is impossible to break into.
I could see the decisions wearing within him and crossed my fingers behind my back. This was a tough decision for him since he was the one who had vowed to protect me when I'd been found and brought to the castle. Now, as my self-proclaimed protector, he had to decide which the best protection was, the academy or the elves, where I would try to sneak away to return to school.
I have to finish at the academy.
I pleaded with him.
I only have 3 months left. Please, Fabian, please.
He sighed.
Fine, but I'm sending word to father about this.
I smiled happily and hugged him.
Thank you.
Very fun, very fun.
Good.
I love that. I couldn't figure out if it was Fabian or Fabian, so I did both.
It's Fabian, but it's okay.
Fabian. I feel like Fabian is like Italian, like, hey, Fabian, Fabiano. What, that wasn't funny, Andy?
Not really. No, but you know,
jerk.
I can't summon a laugh, Stevie. I tried. I really tried.
Thank you. That's all that matters. Were you going to say something, Andy?
I was not. No. But we are running out of time. Ooh, before we go, I didn't get to share my cool story for the week.
Because no one cares.
Ooh, snap. Fine. I won't share my story then.
No, please do. Please do.
All right. So 2 days ago, it was my wife's birthday. You know, I went out and I got her a present and stuff, and I come home, and then I'm writing, and she brings me this box, and she says, "Oh, this box is for you." And I was like, "No, it's for you." Someone said, you know, a present for you. And so she opens it, and she's like, "No, this is for you." And so I got this. Look at this adorable little plant sent by Stevie Collier as a housewarming gift, all the way from Texas to Canada. Class act, Stevie Collier, ladies and gentlemen.
Damn, I'm good. I actually rode my horse all the way up there in the freezing snows to give you that gift of love and tenderness. Yeah.
What happens in Canada, Stevie?
Broke back Canada. God dang it. Some sort of sexuality's got to be in the Fantasy Fiends podcast. I'm sorry, Katherine. Well, you're very welcome, Andy, and I appreciate you showing me. It came out nice. It's a nice plant.
Awesome.
Don't kill it.
I may end up killing it, but I have the card that you sent with it next to my award. So even when the plant dies, I'll still have the note.
Thank you. My heart feels so warm. That wasn't being sarcastic. Katherine, sorry you had to see that little bromance there. Sorry.
It's all good. Romances are good.
Katherine, I really enjoyed your excerpt. I highly recommend anyone listening or watching to go and check out those books. It kind of reminds me of like a Dungeons and Dragons Harry Potter so far because they're going to school, you know?
It's a little bit different. It's not so much a high school as it is more of like a training grounds where they're teaching them how to fight.
Okay. Yeah, so they're like in the middle of sand pits going at it with real swords.
Yes, or wooden swords usually.
Oh, what are those called? Bokens?
Wasters.
Wasters, really? Hey, that's going into the book I'm writing now. I love that, Wasters. But Katherine, I just wanted to tell you that I really enjoyed that, and there's many times I almost laughed with the smelliness and the beard. You kept going back to the beard and the hairiness, and it's awesome because I feel like that's what a woman would think, you know, because it's all that nasty facial hair.
It's not so bad when it's trimmed, right? But when you have these bandits with these huge beards, that I'd be pretty focused on that.
Got food stuck in them and stuff. Yeah, probably got a bird in there with a nest. Well, awesome. Hey, Katherine Banks, thank you so much for being with us today. Where can people find you? Where can new readers find you?
I have books wide, so you can get them from any of your ebook retailers or paperback, excuse me. I'm on Twitter as Katherine E. Banks. I am on Facebook as Katherine Banks Author, and I also have a Facebook group, which is Katherine's Fantastical Felines. So I'm there. You can just search my name and find me pretty easy.
I see that you wrote a harem book.
Reverse harem.
Those are hard, I thought. Like, they seem difficult.
So I've been a reverse harem fan for a long time. Okay. And I had written a few of them several years ago, and then I just decided I was going to write one now, and that genre, the reverse harem, kind of blew up, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Were you on the science fiction and fantasy podcast about that?
no.
Or was that someone else? Okay, because that was where I learned about harem, and that's when I knew I'd never be able to write one because it sounds so difficult. It's so niche. I would feel kind of like lit RPG.
Yeah, it is, and especially because with a reverse harem, you have so many main characters, right? A reverse harem is 3 or more men with 1 woman.
Yes.
And so you have to have distinct characters for all of the main characters, and you need to have development with all of them. So it's a lot of work.
My last that sounds stressful. 1 girl, 3 guys. Man. And I bet she's like, who am I going to be with? Is that how it ends up?
No, that's the point of the reverse harem. She doesn't choose in the end. It's not like the reverse harem animes. She doesn't choose in the end. She gets them all. Why choose? That's our hashtag we use.
But doesn't that give away the ending?
No, it really depends. I mean, there's so many different genres that reverse harem can be. There's contemporary, there's young adult, there's adult. So it really depends. It's more about the relationship and seeing the relationship grow for the men and the woman.
It's like saying, Stevie, a romance movie, you know at the end they're going to get together, so
right.
it's spoiled.
No, okay.
What makes a book like romance or reverse harem is how they get there. You know that ultimately there is going to be this reverse harem with a woman with so many, but it's the emotional and the physical journey that takes them there, and then of course the things that happen while they're in it and all of that makes it something people like reading.
Right, and there's also slow burn where you can even have where it's only maybe 1 man in the first book and then she has another man in the second book, or it depends on each author.
You should really just screw with your readers and make the woman at the end turn into a werewolf. Yeah, thank you, Dad. Get some
K
1
thanks,
stars.
bye.
Huh?
K thanks, bye. And that's it.
Oh, yeah, I know. Hey, Katherine Banks, thank you so much for being on the air with us. We really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for putting up with Andy. Okay, and me. But awesome. Hey, thanks a lot. Hey, readers. I guess so. Yeah, readers, listeners, viewers, thank you so much for being a part of this journey. 195 subscribers. Really, guys? Thank you so much. That means so much to us. We really had no plans for this podcast when we started it, and now I'd like to. Oh, we need to get going. Andy's wife's apparently going to kill him. So, hey, we really appreciate it. At 200 subscribers, I will paint my face. We love you guys, and we hope you have a great night.
Bye.